Hey everyone, Aaron Schechter from the Wet Shaver Review. I am here today to do a little shave of the day slash review of none other than the RazoRock version 3 Stealth razor. The notorious Stealth razor. I was able to get the newest version, the version 3. I've done a little bit of research on version 1, version 2, and version 3. And I've tried version 2, and I own version 3. So, going over this really quick. I don't want to make a very long video today, but I do want to give you some really good information. Number one, overall length of this razor is going to be, I have a little piece of paper here, 98 millimeters is the overall length. The handle itself is 91 of those millimeters. The diameter is 12 millimeters. The weight is pretty light. It's only 40 grams. That's the equivalent, I believe, of the old Gem featherweight, I believe, was right in that neighborhood. 40 grams is definitely light. The finish on it is a black anodized finish, though it's built on a billet machine, CNC billet, and that's the head is actually made on a billet, while the handle itself is actually hand turned on a lathe. Okay, while the diameter is 12 millimeters on the main part of it, the actual butt end, this right here, is actually 14 millimeters. Okay, the head is a bit what I consider bulbous. I'm going to get into the frame a little bit again. So that said, I obviously have a mustache. I'm not going to start shaving it off today for everyone to see how well it gets under my nose and how well I can maneuver it. But we're going to go through the shave together, and I'm just going to do little clippets of my passes so it's not too long. That's a general overview, though, of the specs of the version 3 RazoRock Stealth. Be back with you shortly. I'm going to lather up today. I'm using Katie's Bubbles Pomander with the Bulgoose exclusive Vilong Lord Randall mixed horse badger hair brush. I'm going to be using that as well, still breaking that in, and it's turning into one heck of a brush, as you'll see. Okay, I'll see you all in a moment. Okay, I'm back. As you see, I'm all lathered up and ready to go. Katie's Bubbles Pomander. I used my Vilong Lord Randall mixed hair horse badger brush, and we are using the RazoRock Stealth paired with a Persona Med Prep. This is actually, believe it or not, on its 4th use, and I did that on purpose because it's easy to say, look how well this shaves, you know, on the first when it's the sharpest, but I wanted to show how well this shaves when it's at its dullest. So, and also, I want to show how easily you could shave with this without really much fear of getting cut at all. It's one of the milder slants I've ever personally used. You'll notice, and later in the video you'll see me point this out, that there is a reducing blade gap going from more exposure to less, and that's how I prefer it. I do not do the parallel twist, though I do demonstrate and show that later in the video. So let's get this shave going on, and let's really take a look at how well this razor shaves. There is a cut on my neck right here, by the way. That's from a straight razor from the other day. My fault, my bad. So if I reopen that, that's my own fault. That was from a straight razor the other day. That is not from this razor. Look how I'm kind of going haphazardly, not really paying much attention to what I'm doing here. And that is very much against my nature when it comes to shaving. I pay attention very closely to what I'm doing. Now, of course, with the mustache, I'm going to make sure it's out of the way. finally my chin area. And thus concludes pass number 1. Be right back. Okay, we're doing my across the grain pass now. I've already done my neck just to shorten up this video, and I'm going to just do my across the grain pass on my face now. The one thing to note is that with the version 3 RazoRock Stealth, it does seem to have a little bit higher angle than 30 degrees, that to get a really good optimal angle, at least on my face it does. Again, your mileage may vary. This Pomander soap also provides a lot of glide, so I can go over spots that really don't have a ton of lather on them without really any fear of irritation or anything of that nature. The Stealth is really, in a lot of ways, a carefree shaver for me. It's I'm not worried about getting cuts. I'm not worried about getting nicks or weepers. Not that it's bulletproof or anything. I mean, if you're completely uncareful with it, yeah, you're going to get bit. But compared to other brands, this is like basically an everyday slant. That's what I like to call this, because I could use this slant every day without any fear of getting any types of cuts, weepers, anything. And most importantly, no irritation. And hence concludes my across the grain pass, and I'll be back in a moment to do my against the grain. See you in a moment. Okay, I'm back to do this quick. I'm already on my against the grain pass, but I wanted to talk for a moment just about how this shaves and how it feels. Number one, it feels great in my hand. The razor fits perfectly. My pinky sits right underneath the butt end of the razor, as you see. My thumb up top, helping me control the razor. 3 fingers against it. It's the perfect length for me. As you see, no cuts, no weepers, nothing is showing through this lather. I have nothing going on. Now, I want to get into this because I do discuss it later in the video, is the fact about parallel blade alignment versus offset alignment, which is the way I use it with an offset alignment. It's also the way that Italian Barber wants you to use it and is recommended to use it. The reason being is something called blade flare. And what blade flare is when you have if I try to force this into alignment, which I have done, I've tried it both ways, I find it doesn't make it any better, so I leave it the way it is. What blade flare is it's almost like the blade kind of warps. It gets like a wobble to it, and it's not even. So even though you're making it parallel, it's putting a unnatural type of a torque against the actual blade itself, and even though you could still get a really comfortable shave from it, it actually distorts the blade and the evenness of the blade. So I wanted to clarify that right now. So if anything I either say in this video or you decide to do on your own, it's at your own risk. Italian Barber nor I am recommending you do anything different to this razor than it is intended to do. Also, this is a prototype. This is not the final version of the Stealth. This is all part of my review, by the way. The final version has not been released yet. This is just a prototype. This is the 3rd iteration of it. A lot of people are getting very upset that they can't get it. It's always out of stock on the site. Not for nothing, I don't know that many people that have prototype Mustangs either, or prototype, you know, whatever car, or, you know, the new prototype, you know, Twisby pen or anything like that, because they're prototypes. I feel very blessed that Joe has been good enough to put the prototypes out there for public testing and to get the feedback from them. So that being said, this is the third prototype of the RazoRock Stealth. So I want everyone to keep that in mind when they're looking at this razor, watching me shave with it, and also when they're actually getting upset that they can't get this razor because it's out of stock. It's not a regular production product. It will be, and I have a gut feeling, Joe has never said this to me, that when this goes into regular production, I think you're going to be a lot happier and you'll probably see it a lot more often. It won't be out of stock as often as time goes on. As you can see, my lather is dissipated a little bit. It's got a little bit dry, but I'm still going to go against the grain just the way it is. It's no fault of Pomander. It's a fault of my long-winded nature. So let me just wet the razor and let's go against the grain. This should say volumes as well, that I'm shaving against the grain with a semi-dry lather. And you're not seeing any irritation pop up. That was my neck. And I'll be right back to finish up my face. Okay, and here's where I do my final cheek. I just did my I did my neck on video. I did the right side of my cheek, my chin. This is all BBS, by the way. There's nothing going on there. And I'm finally, this side tends to bleed a little bit more if you watch my video. So here's the real test. And this is a dry lather, by the way. And it's my own fault it's a little bit drier because I did a lot of explanation. I'm not going to even be careful. I'm just going to go with it. Not even a lather there. As you can see, I'm not bleeding, I'm not cut, I have no irritation, no redness on my face, nothing. Nothing is going on whatsoever. Nothing. I don't even have any touch-ups I have to do. I'm not bleeding anywhere. I did cut myself, like I said the other day, right there. That's from a straight razor. I did reopen it when I first did it, but that had nothing to do with this guy right here. So, that being said, I'm going to come back and you're going to see my final thoughts on the version 3 RazoRock Stealth, plus where some changes were made that I've read on different forums and that I've experienced myself using the version 3 versus the version 2. Okay everyone, we're at that point where I want to talk about the differences between at least the version 2 and version 3 Stealth razor, okay? Now, in full disclosure, on the Italian Barber website, it does make a very, very strong recommendation. Actually, it's not even a recommendation. It's a very blatant statement that the blade is not meant to sit parallel, that it was not designed that way, and that it's not meant to be used as a parallel blade, that there is supposed to be a slant to it. Okay, like an actual slant. I'm going to get the razor in a little bit closer to show everyone. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of blade exposure right there, and as you move up the razor, it actually tapers off. Opposite on the opposite side. A lot of exposure, and it tapers down. Now, this is the way that Joe from Italian Barber has had this razor made, and he recommends it to be used. but we are talking about differences here. It's very common knowledge on all the forums, even though I personally don't find any difference doing this, so I find it a complete waste of time, but it is a difference, is that I was taught on the forums that if you want to use it as a parallel design, loosen that handle up. Take the tab that's sticking out right here, and with your finger, push it in the opposite direction of the what I'm going to call lesser, gapped, or the lesser exposed side, and then retighten the handle. And it might take 1 or 2 times to get it completely parallel, or as close to parallel as possible, which I'm trying to do right now. But as you see, I'm going to put it back into the camera. It is no longer reducing itself in the actual blade exposure. You have relatively even exposure all the way through on both sides of this blade, which I happen to be using a Persona Med Prep in this right now. I personally find no reason to do this. Okay, so I'm actually putting it right back to the way I'm supposed to put it, which is with that gap reduction being obviously there, with it being more exposed there and then gradually tapering down, more exposed there, gradually tapering down. I find it shaves very well that way. The other difference is I find this to be milder. I didn't really, to be quite honest, like the version 2 Stealth. I had it for a pass around and I used it a couple times and it was just uncomfortable for me. I didn't like it. I preferred my Merkur 37C or even my Merkur 39C or my Lutz slant bar I preferred to the version 2. It was just too aggressive for me. I don't know if it was just because I didn't learn the angle, or from everything I read from most people, the version 2 was more aggressive than the version 3. The final difference that I've been able to find, and I have mixed feelings on it, is that, and it's been pretty much published, I'm pretty sure. I think that it's common knowledge, and that Joe, and please correct me if I'm saying anything wrong here, is that the actual coating on the version 3 is actually a thinner coating of the anodized finish on the version 3 compared to the version 2. The reason behind that, I'm not 100% sure, but I've read on forums the reason behind it was so you didn't get, well, I guess what it's called diamond pitting or diamond dust, which basically when it was basically flaking, the black was flaking, and they would call that diamond dust because it's a type of anodization that basically I understand, and if you look into it, I'm not going to fully get into how the anodizer coat or why diamond is even in the mix, but you'll understand why they call it diamond dust. So they made a thinner coating that adhered better to the actual razor. I do actually like that, but I'm a little bit leery if I drop it or I don't set it down right, and I don't have the nice black stand. They were out of stock on it, so I couldn't get it. So it sits in my Lazy Susan, and basically I'm always a little bit nervous, but to date I've had it now for quite some time, for at least a month, maybe 2, and I've shaved with it many times, and there's been not one problem with the finish, not one problem whatsoever. And also, it's a lighter weight razor, and it's not made of the common materials we see in most modern razors. I believe that it's actually made out of aluminum, and then it's coated, not to be confused with the aluminum version that came out in version 2, but the metal itself I believe is aluminum. And I've threaded and unthreaded this many times, and the post is extremely strong. So just to recap, the 3 differences are, number 1, that you can, in theory, though not recommended by myself nor Italian Barber, make this a parallel blade alignment, number 1. Number 2, it's a milder shaver than the version 2 in my own experience, and I've read on many forums the exact same experience, that it's a milder shave. And finally, number 3, it's a thinner coating on the version 3 compared to the version 1 and version 2, but that was to prevent that quote-unquote diamond dusting from happening if the actual plating or coating of the razor actually started to flake off. That prevented it. The thinner coating adhered better, therefore that's why they did it. I actually love the version 3. A lot of people like the version 2. I happen to like this version better. That's my preference. But my preference doesn't really mean much because, as always, your mileage may vary. I hope you enjoyed the rest of this video. I'm Aaron Schechter from the Wet Shaver Review, and I will see you in the next video shortly. Have a great day, everyone. Shave on.